I still remember the exact moment my world fell apart. The fluorescent lights of the HR office buzzed overhead as Patricia slid a folder across her desk. Her face was a mask of disappointment mixed with pity. "Emily, we've found evidence that you accessed confidential materials before the promotion exam. The IT logs show it clearly." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. "Your laptop accessed the answer bank at 9:47 p.m. last Thursday." My mouth went dry. "That's impossible. I didn't." "The evidence is conclusive," she cut me off. "Richard submitted the report himself after IT flagged suspicious activity." Richard, my boss for 8 years, the man who'd nodded with rare approval when I finished top of my class in that exam. "We have a zero-tolerance policy for cheating," Patricia continued. "Your employment is terminated, effective immediately." I sat frozen, my brain struggling to process what was happening. Because I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I wasn't even home last Thursday night. I was at my dad's 60th birthday dinner with my entire family. Someone had set me up, and I had a sinking feeling I knew exactly who. Security guard Mike wouldn't look me in the eye as he escorted me to my desk. Coworkers peered over cubicle walls, then quickly ducked down when I glanced their way. 8 years of dedication, reduced to whispers and averted gazes. "You have 15 minutes to gather personal items," Mike mumbled, staring at the floor. I robotically packed my coffee mug, family photos, and the small plant I'd kept alive for years. My mind raced with questions, but my body moved on autopilot. Before I even reached the parking garage, my company email stopped working. My security badge deactivated with a sad little beep when I tried to use the elevator. In my car, a text from Jessica in accounting popped up. "HR just sent an email about your violation of company ethics. What happened?" I couldn't answer. My throat felt like I'd swallowed glass. At home, I found an email from legal. "Do not attempt to contact current employees or clients of Mercer Financial. Any such contact will be considered harassment." They hadn't just fired me, they had erased me. And Richard, my mentor, my boss, had orchestrated the whole thing. What I didn't understand was why. I sat on my couch that night, surrounded by crumpled tissues, scrolling through my phone. Photos from Dad's birthday dinner filled my screen. Time-stamped 7:30 to 11:15 p.m. last Thursday. The exact time I supposedly accessed those files. There were dozens of witnesses, a restaurant receipt, even an Instagram post from my sister with me clearly in the background, captioned 9:45 p.m. and Dad still going strong. I forwarded everything to Patricia in HR with a desperate note explaining my alibi. Her response came minutes later. "The logs show the access came from your company laptop at your home IP address. This matter is closed." I threw my phone across the room and buried my face in my hands. It didn't make sense. I never brought my work laptop to Dad's birthday. It had been at home, powered down. Unless someone else had accessed it remotely? But that would take admin credentials. It would mean someone deliberately framed me. As I reached for my phone to check my calendar again, it buzzed with an unknown number. "Emily? It's Ethan from IT. Don't hang up. I think I know what happened." My heart skipped a beat. Ethan Rise and I weren't friends exactly, but we'd always been friendly. He was that rare IT guy who didn't talk down to people who asked for help. He'd been on leave when everything happened. "I just got back and heard," he said. Voice low like he was hiding. "It doesn't add up. You cheating? No way." For the first time in 2 days, I felt tears of relief instead of despair. Someone believed me. "The logs looked too perfect," he continued. So I dug deeper. "Emily, someone used an administrative override to access your laptop remotely that night." My breath caught. "Can you prove it?" "I'm working on it. The override came from inside the building, not your home. The metadata shows it clearly, but someone tried to hide it." "Richard," I whispered. There was a pause on the line. "Maybe. But why would he do this?" I thought hard. 6 months ago, I flagged some inconsistencies in the Peterson account. Richard told me to drop it. "The vendor he personally recommended?" Ethan asked. "Yes, and the report I filed mysteriously disappeared from the system." "Emily," Ethan's voice was dead serious. "He didn't frame you because you might get promoted. He framed you because you were a threat." The next day, Ethan called again. "I found something. The remote access wasn't just any override. It required top-level credentials." And guess who was still in the building at 9:47 Thursday night? My stomach tightened. Richard? His security badge swiped at 9:32 p.m. to access the executive floor. He didn't leave until 10:15. I paced my apartment, mind racing. Can you trace the exact device that triggered my laptop? Already did. It came from a company IP address assigned to. Ethan paused dramatically. Richard's office computer. The pieces were falling into place, but it still seemed unbelievable. My boss of 8 years had deliberately destroyed my career. There's more, Ethan continued. After accessing your laptop remotely, the user logged into your profile and used it to open the exam portal. Classic frame job. But why go to all this trouble? I asked. Because you almost caught him once with Peterson. What else might you catch if you became senior auditor with higher clearance? It clicked then. This wasn't personal pettiness. This was panic. Richard saw me as a threat to whatever he was hiding. Ethan, we need to dig deeper. What was in those Peterson files that scared him so much? I couldn't sleep that night. The Peterson account kept nagging at me. I remembered finding unusual payment patterns, large sums split into smaller transactions, all just under the reporting threshold. Classic signs of something shady. When I'd shown Richard, his face had tightened before he forced a smile. Just their accounting style. I've known Peterson for years. Rock solid. I'd trusted him then. What a fool I'd been. The next morning, I dug through my personal emails, looking for any notes I might have saved about Peterson. There, an email I'd sent to myself 6 months ago, with a subject line, discrepancies to discuss. I had listed 5 suspicious transactions with dates and amounts. Not enough to prove wrongdoing, but enough to warrant further investigation. Richard had shut down. My phone buzzed. Ethan again. Emily, I checked the system logs from 6 months ago. Someone deleted your original Peterson report from the company server. Guess when? The same day I submitted it? I asked. Exactly, and I found something else. There are dozens of similar patterns with other accounts Richard manages. This isn't just one vendor. This looks systematic. My hands shook as the truth dawned. He wasn't afraid I'd get his job. He was afraid I'd expose whatever he's been doing. Emily, Ethan said solemnly, I think we're looking at fraud, and you were getting too close. Over the next week, Ethan and I worked in secret, building our case. He used his IT access to gather evidence during off hours when fewer people would notice his unusual searches. I created a secure document trail. Login timestamps, security badge swipes, remote access logs, deletion records. Every piece of evidence was meticulously organized and timestamped. We need to be careful, Ethan warned during one of our calls. If Richard realizes we're investigating, he could cover his tracks, or worse. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. The or worse hung in the air between us. If Richard would fabricate evidence to get me fired, what else might he do? We established a code system for our communications and avoided meeting in person. Ethan suggested using encrypted messaging apps instead of texts or calls. I found something else, he said one night, voice tense with excitement. The override command used to access your laptop? It wasn't a standard admin function. Someone wrote a custom script specifically to frame you. My blood ran cold. That takes planning, premeditation. Yes, Ethan agreed. And the script has Richard's digital fingerprints all over it. He didn't just take advantage of an opportunity. He engineered this whole thing. Our evidence pile was growing, but I wanted more. The script wasn't just clever, it was designed to be untraceable, Ethan explained as we video chatted from different coffee shops across town. Except for one mistake. On my screen, he shared his findings. A manual command buried in layers of code that linked directly to Richard's admin credentials. He had tried to hide it, but hadn't completely covered his tracks. He duplicated your credentials, Ethan continued, creating a perfect digital copy of your login signature. But he forgot that the system logs the credential creator's ID too. I leaned closer to my screen. So the logs show not just the fake access, but that Richard created the fake access? Exactly. It's digital forgery, and I can prove it now. We had enough to go to HR, enough to clear my name, but something held me back. I want to know what he's hiding with Peterson, I said firmly. This isn't just about getting my job back anymore. This is about whatever scheme made Richard desperate enough to frame me. Ethan's face grew serious. I've been digging into Peterson's payment records. Emily, there are millions flowing through subdivided accounts. This looks like money laundering. The realization hit me like a thunderbolt. Richard hadn't just framed me to save his job. He'd framed me to keep himself out of prison. We need to take this higher than HR? I said. We need the ethics board. Mercer Financial's ethics board was the company's highest internal authority. They operated independently from management and reported directly to the board of directors. If anyone could handle this properly, it was them. Are you sure about this? Ethan asked as we prepared our submission. Once we file, there's no going back. I nodded, determination replacing my earlier fear. Richard chose this path, not me. We compiled everything. The forged access logs, the custom script with Richard's credentials, the suspicious Peterson transactions, the timeline of events. Ethan encrypted it all with digital signatures that would prove if anyone tampered with the evidence. We submitted the package anonymously through the ethics board's secure portal. Then we waited. 3 days later, my phone rang. It was Patricia from HR. Emily, she said, her voice strangely subdued. We need you to come in tomorrow at 9 a.m. There have been developments regarding your termination. I kept my voice steady, betraying none of the triumph I felt. I'll be there. After hanging up, I called Ethan immediately. They're bringing me in. This is it, he replied. Remember, act surprised by whatever they tell you. We can't let them know we were working together. The next morning, I dressed in my best suit and took a deep breath. This time, I would walk into Mercer Financial on my terms. The same security guard who'd escorted me out nodded respectfully as I entered the building. Patricia was waiting in the lobby, her usual confidence replaced by nervous energy. Thank you for coming in, she said, leading me not to her office, but to the executive conference room. Inside sat the chief HR officer, the general counsel, and the head of the ethics board. Their expressions were grave. Ms. Granger, began the ethics board chairman, we owe you an apology. Our investigation has uncovered significant irregularities in the evidence that led to your termination. I forced my face to show surprise and relief, rather than the vindication I actually felt. We've determined that you did not cheat on your examination. In fact, it appears the access logs were manipulated specifically to implicate you. Patricia slid a folder across the table, an official reinstatement letter, along with back pay for the weeks I'd been out. Your promotion to senior auditor has been approved, effective immediately, she added, and the company wishes to extend its sincere apologies for this unfortunate situation. I accepted the folder with steady hands. What about Richard? I asked, trying to sound merely curious rather than hungry for justice. The general counsel cleared his throat. Mr. Kessler has been placed on administrative leave, pending further investigation. Translation, Richard was in deep trouble, but they hadn't fired him yet. Well, that wouldn't do at all. I returned to work the following Monday to whispers and stares, but this time they were supportive, even admiring. Apparently word had spread about my exoneration and Richard's suspension. Ethan and I maintained our distance at work, communicating only through our secret channels. Richard's access has been revoked, he messaged. But I found something else. Before he was suspended, he made one last move against you. He sent me a screenshot of an email Richard had drafted to the Financial Industry Certification Board, the organization that oversees all compliance professionals in the industry. The email falsely reported that I had been terminated for ethics violations, recommending I be blacklisted from all financial compliance roles. My blood boiled. Even in his downfall, Richard was trying to destroy my future. Did this actually get sent? I texted back, hands shaking with rage. Almost. It was in his drafts folder scheduled to send automatically today. I intercepted it. Relief flooded through me, followed quickly by renewed determination. Keep digging, I wrote. He tried to nuke my entire career. I want to know everything he's hiding. This wasn't just about clearing my name anymore. This was about making sure Richard Kessler never had the power to hurt anyone else again. And I knew exactly where to start. The Financial Industry Oversight Board controls who can and cannot work in our field. Their ethics committee has the power to revoke licenses permanently. With Ethan's help, I prepared a comprehensive package, evidence of Richard's frame-up, his attempted blacklisting, and the suspicious Peterson transactions. I included a forensic analysis of how he'd manipulated the system to implicate me. "Are you sure about this?" Ethan asked as I prepared to send it. "This won't just get him fired. This could end his career forever." I paused, considering the weight of what we were doing. Then I remembered how easily Richard had discarded 8 years of my loyal service, how he'd tried to destroy not just my job, but my entire professional future. "He made his choice," I said firmly, hitting send. "Now he faces the consequences." The Oversight Board's automatic reply was brief. "Receipt confirmed. Investigation pending." That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Richard thought he was safe, demoted but still employed. He had no idea what was coming. Meanwhile, the Ethics Board's investigation continued. They were reviewing all of Richard's accounts now, not just Peterson. The web of deception was unraveling thread by thread. "He's starting to look nervous," Ethan reported after passing Richard in the hallway. "He knows something's happening, but not what." "Good. Let him sweat." Ethan called me after hours, voice tight with excitement. "I found his test environment. You won't believe this." He discovered a hidden folder on Richard's secure drive containing practice runs of the override script used to frame me. Richard had tested it multiple times, perfecting his attack. "These files show premeditation," Ethan explained. "He was planning this for weeks, maybe longer." Even more damning, Richard had created a second set of forged logs, backup ammunition in case the first set was questioned. These fake logs showed me supposedly sharing my password with a friend outside the company. "It's like he had a whole arsenal ready," I said, disgusted. Belt and suspenders approach to framing me. "This wasn't just him covering his tracks with Peterson," Ethan mused. "This level of preparation suggests something bigger." He was right. This was overkill for a simple cover-up. Richard must have been protecting something much larger than a few suspicious transactions. "We need to find what he was really hiding," I said. "Something made him desperate enough to risk everything to get rid of me." Ethan agreed. "I'll keep digging into the Peterson accounts. There must be connections to other clients, other transactions." I hung up, more determined than ever. Richard hadn't just tried to cheat me out of a promotion. He'd been playing a much bigger and more dangerous game. And I was getting closer to uncovering it. "Emily, check your secure email now," Ethan messaged at midnight. I opened the encrypted channel to find a bombshell. Deleted chat logs between Richard and someone named David Sloan, Director of Internal Systems. The conversations had been scrubbed from the company servers, but Ethan had recovered fragments from the backup system. "She's getting too close to the Peterson's structure. Can't you just redirect her?" "Tried that. She's persistent, too smart for her own good. The promotion test is next week. Make sure she doesn't pass. If she gets senior clearance, she'll see the whole network. We need something more permanent." Admin access could solve this problem permanently. The conversation was dated 1 week before the exam, and 1 week before I was framed. I sat back, stunned. "Ethan, this wasn't just Richard. David was part of this too." "I know," he replied. "David's the one who approved Richard's special admin access that week, access he never should have had." The betrayal cut deeper now. Not just one person, but 2 senior executives had conspired to destroy my career. They were afraid of what I'd find if I got promoted, I whispered to myself. But what exactly were they hiding? What network were they so desperate to protect? Whatever it was, I now had evidence of a conspiracy reaching to the highest levels of the company. David Sloan. I'd met him only a few times, a stern, silver-haired man who rarely left the executive floor. As Director of Internal Systems, he controlled all access privileges across the company. "That's how Richard got the override capability," Ethan explained the next day. David granted him temporary elevated access, something that should have triggered security alerts. But since David had security, he could suppress those alerts. I finished, the pieces falling into place. We dug into David's background. 20 years at Mercer Financial, respected, above suspicion. But his name appeared on the approval chain for every Peterson transaction I'd flagged. If Richard goes down, David goes with him, I realized. They're tied together. Ethan nodded. And David has way more to lose. His retirement is less than 2 years away. A scandal now. Would cost him everything, I finished. His pension, his reputation. We had to be even more careful now. David had eyes everywhere in the company's systems. One wrong move, and all our evidence could disappear. I think it's time to get legal advice, I told Ethan. This is bigger than just clearing my name. He agreed. I have a friend, a compliance attorney who specializes in financial fraud. Let me contact her. No names, just hypotheticals for now. The net was closing around Richard and David. They just didn't know it yet. The compliance attorney, Melissa Chen, reviewed our evidence over a secure connection. If proven, she said, her expression grave, this constitutes employment fraud, data manipulation, and reputational sabotage, possibly criminal charges, depending on what they were hiding. She advised us to document everything meticulously, create backups of all evidence, and stay quiet while the company's investigation proceeded. The ethics board has opened a formal audit, she noted. Let that process work. Your evidence is compelling. They'll find the truth. After the call, Ethan messaged me. Just heard from my contact in legal. Richard and David are both under official review now. I felt a surge of vindication. The company was finally seeing what we'd uncovered. Meanwhile, I returned to my senior auditor duties, keeping my head down and pretending I knew nothing beyond my own exoneration. It wasn't easy sitting in meetings, analyzing reports, acting normal when I knew a storm was brewing. Twice I passed Richard in the hallway. He'd been demoted to a smaller office but remained employed while under investigation. His face was haggard, his confident swagger replaced by nervous glances. He avoided my eyes completely. Good. Let him feel what I felt, the uncertainty, the fear, the sense of doom closing in. Only his fears were justified. The wheels of justice turned slowly, but they were turning. It's happening, Ethan messaged 3 days later. David just spent 2 hours with the ethics board. Through his IT monitoring tools, Ethan observed frantic activity on David's computer immediately after the meeting. He was deleting files, scrubbing logs, trying to cover his tracks. Too late, Ethan chuckled as he showed me the backup records. Everything he's trying to delete, I already saved copies of. We packaged this new evidence of obstruction and sent it anonymously to the ethics board. Within hours, David was called back in for another interview. They've separated them now, Ethan reported later. Richard and David are being questioned in different rooms. No chance to coordinate their stories. I imagined the scene. 2 powerful men who thought themselves untouchable, now sweating under the harsh lights of investigation. The same men who had callously ruined my career without a second thought. That evening, I received an unexpected email from the ethics board. Ms. Granger, your expertise would be valuable to our ongoing audit. Please hold time tomorrow at 10 a.m. I forwarded it to Ethan. What does this mean? I think. He replied after a moment. They're going to ask you to help nail the coffin shut. For the first time in this whole ordeal, I felt a smile. A real smile, spread across my face. The tables had truly turned. David cracked first. Faced with overwhelming evidence of his role in the scheme, he threw Richard under the bus. Kessler approached me about the access, he claimed to the ethics board. I only enabled it. I had no idea what he planned to do. He said it was for system testing. His denial crumbled when confronted with the recovered chat logs. The panic in his eyes was visible even from where I sat, called in as an expert witness to verify the technical aspects of how I'd been framed. Richard, meanwhile, denied everything. He claimed his account must have been hacked, that he was being set up just like I had been. His performance might have been convincing, if not for the mountain of evidence against him. Miss Granger, the ethics board chairman asked me, in your professional opinion, could these access patterns have occurred accidentally? I looked Richard straight in the eye for the first time since my return. No, sir. The pattern shows deliberate, methodical action by someone with intimate knowledge of our systems and my work habits. This required planning and intent. Richard's face drained of color as Ethan was called in next, walking the board through the technical trail that led directly to Richard's door. The evidence is conclusive. Ethan finished. There is no possibility this was coincidental or accidental. Richard slumped in his chair, finally realizing his defeat was complete. The ethics board's verdict came down like a hammer the next day. Both Richard and David were found guilty of malicious conduct, abuse of privileges, and harmful actions against another employee. Richard was terminated, effective immediately. No severance. No references. Security escorted him out that afternoon, carrying a single box of personal items. Our eyes met as he walked past my desk. The hatred in his gaze was palpable, but beneath it lay something else. Fear. He knew this wasn't the end. David received a different fate: demotion to a non-management role, permanent flag in his HR file, and mandatory ethics training. His proximity to retirement had earned him a sliver of mercy. The company called an all-hands meeting to address the situation, making it clear that integrity violations would not be tolerated at any level. Without naming me directly, they referenced recent events that had exposed serious ethical breaches. After the meeting, the chief HR officer approached me privately. "Emily, we want to offer you a formal apology again, and we'd like to discuss additional compensation for the hardship you experienced." I nodded politely, but my mind was elsewhere. Because while Mercer Financial thought this matter was closed, I knew the final act was still to come. The Oversight Board hadn't issued their ruling yet. The Financial Industry Oversight Board moved slowly but definitively. 3 weeks after my submission, they reached their decision. Richard Kessler's license to work in corporate finance was permanently revoked. The official notice arrived in both his personal email and the company's compliance department simultaneously. The ruling was brutal in its simplicity. Due to evidence of fraudulent behavior, falsification of records, and ethical violations, Richard Kessler is permanently barred from all positions requiring financial compliance certification. In our industry, this was a death sentence. No reputable firm would touch him now. I learned of the decision through Ethan, who still monitored the compliance inbox. "It's done," he texted. "Richard is finished." That evening, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, watching the sunset. The man who had tried to destroy my career had lost everything instead. The justice was poetic. Yet I felt no celebration, only a quiet sense of closure. This hadn't been about revenge, but accountability. Richard had made his choices, and now he faced their consequences. My phone buzzed with news alerts. The story had broken in the financial press. Former Mercer executive barred from industry after ethics scandal. Richard's fall from grace was complete, public, and permanent. The cheater label he tried to pin on me now belonged to him forever. The fallout continued. David Sloan announced his early retirement, effective immediately. The spend more time with family excuse fooled no one. My phone rang constantly with recruiters suddenly interested in my unique experience in compliance and ethics. Word had spread about my exoneration and subsequent role in exposing the fraud. The CEO himself invited me to lunch, offering effusive apologies and a substantial raise. "We value integrity here at Mercer," he insisted, as if the entire scandal hadn't happened on his watch. I smiled politely through the meal, but had already made my decision. I declined the company's improved offer to stay. "I appreciate the opportunity," I told him, "but I think it's time for me to explore new horizons." His surprise was obvious. He'd expected gratitude, not independence. "May I ask where you're heading?" "I'm considering my options," I replied diplomatically. The truth was, I'd already accepted an offer from Archway Partners, Mercer's most prestigious competitor. They'd reached out discreetly, impressed by how I'd handled the entire situation. As I cleaned out my desk for the second time in 2 months, the difference was striking. This time, I left on my terms, head held high, future bright. Ethan stopped by as I packed. "So what's next for you?" he asked. I smiled. "Actually, I have a question about that. You want me to come with you to Archway?" Ethan's eyes widened. "Seriously?" I nodded. "I've already discussed it with them. They're impressed with your skills and integrity. The offer includes a substantial raise for both of us." Archway Partners had been thrilled at the prospect of poaching 2 top talents from their rival, especially under these circumstances. My new title would be Director of Compliance Analytics, with nearly double my Mercer salary. "They value integrity there," I explained, "and they're smart enough to know that what Richard tried to do to me could happen anywhere without proper oversight." Ethan considered for only a moment before breaking into a wide grin. "When do we start?" 2 weeks later, we both submitted our resignations. The news traveled through Mercer like wildfire. 2 key employees leaving right after the scandal. It didn't look good for the company. My last day was surprisingly emotional. Despite everything, I had history here. Colleagues stopped by to wish me well, many expressing admiration for how I'd handled the ordeal. As I walked out the front door for the final time, I felt lighter. The betrayal still stung, but it had led me to something better. A workplace that valued my skills and my character. Sometimes getting pushed off a cliff teaches you that you can fly. My first week at Archway was ending when I received a crisp envelope with Mercer Financial's logo. Inside was a handwritten note from the head of their ethics committee. Dear Miss Granger, your handling of the recent unfortunate situation demonstrated exceptional integrity and professional courage. As we rebuild our ethics protocols, your insights would be invaluable. Would you consider consulting with our committee on a limited basis? Respectfully, Jonathan Wells. I stared at the note, a strange mix of emotions washing over me. They were asking for my help. The same company that had escorted me out in disgrace just months ago. There was something satisfying about their need for me now. Something validating about their recognition of my value after treating me as disposable. I folded the card in half and slipped it into my desk drawer. No response needed. My focus was on building something new, not fixing what they'd broken. Let them find their own way forward. That evening, Ethan and I celebrated our successful first week with dinner at an upscale restaurant, the kind of place Richard used to frequent. The irony wasn't lost on me. To new beginnings, Ethan toasted, raising his glass, and to unexpected endings, I added with a smile. 6 months flew by at Archway. My new office featured floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the city skyline. My team respected me. My ideas were valued. The knot of anxiety that had lived in my stomach at Mercer had finally dissolved. I'd built a new compliance tracking system that could identify suspicious patterns like the ones I'd found with Peterson. Archway's senior management praised its effectiveness, and rumors circulated that it might be implemented company-wide. One morning, I spotted a familiar face in the financial news. Richard Kessler, looking haggard, was being investigated for a pattern of irregularities at Mercer Financial that predated my firing. The Peterson account was specifically mentioned. So that was what he'd been hiding, not just one suspicious client, but a systematic fraud that was only now coming to light. I felt a moment of vindication, but no real joy in his continued downfall. Richard had become a cautionary tale, nothing more. Later that day, I interviewed candidates for a new position on my team. One question I always asked, tell me about a time you faced an ethical challenge. Their answers told me everything I needed to know about who they really were beneath the polished resumes. Because I'd learned the hard way. Character reveals itself not in easy times, but in moments of pressure and temptation. 1 year to the day after my wrongful termination, I sat at my desk at Archway, reviewing quarterly compliance reports. My team had just completed a major audit with 0 flags. A testament to the systems we'd built. Ethan knocked on my open door. Did you see this? He handed me his tablet, displaying Mercer Financial's latest earnings report. Their stock had plummeted after the full extent of the Peterson scandal became public. The fraud had been much bigger than we'd initially suspected. Richard and David had been protecting a network of shell companies that laundered money through Mercer for years. The SEC was now involved. I handed the tablet back to Ethan. Not our circus, not our monkeys. He smiled at the phrase, my new mantra whenever Mercer news broke. That evening, I opened a blank document on my laptop and typed a single sentence. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Below it, I added, and when someone underestimates you, let that be their mistake, not yours. I saved the file as lessons learned and closed my laptop. Richard had tried to paint me as a cheater, to erase my career and my reputation. Instead, he'd only revealed his own corruption while inadvertently pushing me toward something better. Sometimes the worst day of your life becomes the first day of your best chapter. I was living proof.